sometimes the loudest thing you can say, yeah, is nothing at all. Silence can feel like an empty room, echoing with the questions you never got to ask and the words you swallowed because you knew they would fall on deaf ears. And yet, in that quiet, something shifts. Not just in him, but in you. It's strange how a heart that once begged for a reply can begin to find its own rhythm when it stops knocking. I know what it's like to stare at your phone, watching the minutes stretch into hours, then into days, wondering if his silence means you've already been forgotten. But there's another kind of silence, one you choose, a silence that's not punishment, but protection. That's the silence I want to talk about. There was a time when I thought the only way to keep someone close was to keep talking, keep explaining, keep proving why I was worth staying for. I didn't understand then that sometimes the more you chase a drifting ship, the further it sails away. He was pulling back, and I felt that invisible thread between us growing thinner every day. So I kept tugging at it, thinking if I just tried harder, he'd turn around. But one evening, I remember sitting alone in my room, feeling like every message I sent was a pebble thrown into the ocean. They sank, and nothing came back. That's when I stopped. Not out of anger, not out of a plan to make him miss me, but because I realized my words deserved ears that I wanted to hear them. In the days that followed, I didn't send the good mornings or the just thinking of you texts. I didn't comment on his posts or leave a trail of little reminders that I was there. Instead, I let the silence be my presence, and something strange happened. At first, nothing. The quiet felt like a cliff edge. Part of me wanted to run back to the safety of the noise, but then I began to hear my own thoughts again. I began to notice how much of my energy had been spent trying to fill his absence. And slowly, he noticed too. It wasn't immediate, but little by little, his name began to appear on my screen again. The same man who had been too busy, too distracted, now wanted to know why I wasn't speaking, because silence, it doesn't just create space, it forces someone to feel the weight of it. I'm not saying he came back because I was silent. He came back because my silence had changed me. I was no longer the woman chasing crumbs of attention. I had shifted from someone waiting to be chosen to someone who realized she could choose herself. And that energy, that quiet, steady self-respect speaks louder than any words. Have you ever noticed how when you stop explaining yourself, people start leaning in to listen? It's not a game, it's a boundary. It's an unspoken way of saying, my soul is not a place for half-hearted visits. It reminds me of something I once stumbled upon about the hidden things that make a man truly feel the loss of your presence. Not in a manipulative way, but in the way a quiet song can haunt you after it stops playing. There's a kind of pull, an invisible gravity you can create when you know the right strings to touch in his heart. I didn't know it at the time, but when I learned more about it, it felt like finding a secret map I'd been walking without realizing. Silence isn't always easy, especially when your heart feels heavy with things unsaid, but it can be a gift, a space where you stop reaching outward and begin listening inward. When you stop filling every pause, you start hearing the whispers of what you truly need. Sometimes you'll find that he returns to the sound of your voice. Other times you'll find that the silence is telling you it's time to walk away. Both answers are acts of love. If you're here right now wondering if your absence will be felt, let me remind you of this. You are not a disappearing act. You are quiet after the storm, the pause before the next breath. And the right person will feel the loss of your voice because they cherished the sound of it when it was there. If this touched something in you, stay close. You're not alone in this. There's more waiting when you're ready. Thank you, friends.